Joining us now, Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar, also from Texas, closer to the border there. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday, sir.
Thank you, and good morning to you.
I want to get your thoughts as well on the shooting yesterday in Texas, following just quickly on the heels of one a little bit more than a week ago. Uvalde, so many of these, church shootings and others that come to mind. Where do we go from here when people don't feel safe at malls, at churches, at schools, or at home?
Yes, and first of all, to the families, our thoughts, our prayers, and hopefully they'll be able to heal. Second of all, we need to find out answers, exactly what happened here. And again, we need to find out. There's always a reason why certain people, and there's always telltale signs before. There's indicators that we should have looked at for. But again, to the law enforcement that put a stop to this, again, I thank them. And we've seen this in Uvalde. We saw that in my district, Sutherland Springs, some time ago at a church. And it's one of those things that we need to look at. And again, it's making sure we get at the root problems. And I do agree with the governor. Mental health is one of the things. That's why at the federal level, we've added billions of dollars for mental health. And if people talk about just, making the law stricter, you got to look at, in states that are blue, very strict laws, you still get this type of mass shooting. So it does happen across the nation, and we have to get to the bottom of this.
Absolutely. You are here to talk about the border as well. So let's talk about what we heard from Secretary Mayorkas. Says the border's closed. It's not going to open after Title 42 lifts this week. You heard the governor say that's absolutely not true. Here's what the Border Patrol Union tweeted out. Don't believe anything the White House says. The last 10 days, 7,700 arrests per day. Title 42 hasn't ended yet, and it's going to get worse. 700% increase over normal day during Obama and Trump administrations. We have lying propagandists running this country in DHS right now. Who is telling the truth, Congressman?
Certainly we're seeing people coming in, the borders open. There are some policies that, in my opinion, should have been implemented some years ago. We need to have a very simple thing at the border, repercussions. That is, people that are supposed to stay here should be able to stay under the law. And if they have to be returned, they have to be returned quickly. You got to have some repercussions, because if you don't have repercussions at the border, people are going to see the border as a speed bump, and they'll be coming in at this time. So we got to have repercussions at the border. And remember, I know a lot of times they say, well, the immigration system is broken. The immigration system is broken. Yes, we do need to have immigration reform. But keep in mind, President Obama, for the folks that were not supposed to be here, actually deported more people than President Trump. So there's a way that you can have law and order at the border and still respect the legitimate, I emphasize the word legitimate, asylum claims.
I want to read something from one of the president's rare Democratic challengers. This is RFK Jr., who says, we have to think about what's drawing the people here. In a tweet earlier this week, he said, in large part, it is U.S. policies that create desperate conditions south of the border. He went on to add, it is inhumane and hypocritical to deny immigration while creating the conditions that drive in immigration. That's what critics say this administration is doing, though, creating the magnets, creating the conditions. What do you say?
Well, look, there are pull factors and push factors. Push factors, of course, are certain conditions all across the world. In the old days, it was Mexican single male adults who would come in to come work. Then in the 2000s, you had Central American countries. And then lately, you've had people from Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, that know that the U.S. doesn't have a good working relationship with that country, and it's hard to send those people back. And then, of course, lately at the border, you have over 60 countries that are represented. It's almost like a mini UN down there, because there's so many people, name the Africa, the Middle East, China, Vietnam, they're coming in because, again, there are push factors in those countries, but there's also pull factors. And the pull factors is what I said at the beginning. If you don't have consequences at the border, it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to keep coming.
Well, the numbers are exponentially higher under this administration. I mean, that's just hard data. So what are your conversations with the White House like about the fact that people think, no matter what officials say, the border is open, and millions of them have showed up in the last couple of years? Those are just the ones we know about.
You know, and if you look at the last 2 years, yes, you've had over 4.3 million individuals that have been encountered by Border Patrol. That doesn't even include the getaways. So far, as of Friday, we had about a 2% increase. At the same time, we've had over, I think it's about 1.2 million individuals so far, and the fiscal year is still not over. So people are coming in, and again, I go back. You got to make that decision at the border, because if you don't make that decision at the border, they're going to come in either taxpayers' dollars, like Governor Abbott is doing, or they're going to be flying in or going through other buses. They're going to come into the interior. And once they come into the interior, and let me talk about New York, there's about 10 cities where most of these migrants are going. New York is number one. And when they give those notice to report, that is to ICE, not before an immigration court. In New York City, it's going to be till 2033. 2033. I mean, that's 10 years
just unsustainable.
Before they even go to a judge.
Right. I mean, if we're asking people to do things the legal way, I want to put something up. This is another recent Fox News poll we have just out on how the president is doing on any number of issues. On the issue of immigration, 36% approve of how he's doing, 61% disapprove. That is a 2-to-1 margin. The White House is blaming Congress. They say you guys are not getting the job done on reforming this issue. But how much blame do you think the White House bears? Because the American people seem to think the president has a big problem on his hands.
Look, let me put it this way. President Obama did not have an immigration reform. He pushed for DACA, in which I support, and I support full immigration reform. But there were no changes in the laws under President Obama. He was able to use Title 8, which is a current law, instead of Title 42. And he was able to treat people with respect, but if they had to be returned, he sent them back. He had images of airplanes going back. Right now, the only image that we see is people coming in, no images of people going back. So yes, the American public is frustrated. Now, the administration needs to go to the center, and I've asked them to go to the center. And I think some of the policies that they're about to implement brings them to the center, in my opinion, a little bit too late, but at least they're getting policies that will come to the center.
Do they take your calls, Congressman, the White House?
Look, I haven't called the White House. I talked to Secretary Mayorkas, Troy Miller, and other folks, Border Patrol chiefs at the border. I go directly to Homeland because a lot of them are career people, and we got to make sure that the career people have a say-so at the table. And again, it's okay to listen to immigration activists, but you got to listen to the men and women in green and blue from Homeland. And you certainly have to listen to the border communities like Laredo, Texas, because we're taking the brunt of what's happening down here at the border.
Yeah, that is the reality. And God bless those men and women in uniform doing their absolute best there. Congressman, thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Shannon. It's a pleasure.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.